it's not that flashy. It's just a reflection within you, and I have adjusted for the first 35 years of my life. I wanted, okay, I have all the things which were there in my checklist. You're not even on this path of self improvement and this self transformation.
आप अपने आप पे ध्यान ही नहीं दे पा रहे हो because we don't have time, because of the lives that we are living in. What are the type of thoughts that you have? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like, I've achieved everything? We are easily able to connect with anybody who we want. Like suddenly I keep questioning myself. Make it work the way you want to make it work. Everything in this universe is energy.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the podcast Beyond the Peel, your journey to self-transformation. Today I'm going to talk about a term which most of us have heard, but there are lots of myths around it, like people misunderstand what it is. So it is midlife crisis. I'm sure this is not the first time you're hearing it. If you are hearing it for the first time, today's video is going to let you know more about what it is, but it's specifically around what it is not, which means I'm going to burst some myths revolving around midlife crisis. So if you are interested in that, to keep watching. All right, so let's get started. Myth number 1 about midlife crisis is that it only happens in your 40s. That's a myth. So midlife crisis, it can happen to anybody who is starting from late 30s to late 60s. So it is not tied to a specific age. It's tied to a specific age range, which is late 30s to late 60s. It can happen at any point during that time period, during that age bracket. Now, I am not sure why it's coined as a midlife crisis, because it's not literally necessarily that it's like a middle of your life. It could be later in your life as well, because we're not sure what the life expectancy is, right, for anyone. So I'm not sure why this term is coined, but what is for sure is that it doesn't necessarily have to happen to people who are in their 40s. It's not something that when you grow up it's going to happen to you. It could happen in your starting in your late 30s up until your late 60s. People who are maybe 50 at this point, they might not experience this, and that is completely normal. So it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to someone who has crossed their 40 age, and that 40 to 50 age is what I've heard. A lot of people think that midlife crisis is something that happens during 40s to 50 age bracket, but that's not wrong. The age bracket is a little wider. It's late 30s to late 60s. Now there is a fun fact that people who experience this even before whatever the symptoms of midlife crisis are, they can experience these symptoms a little before, like in their 20s, mid 20s to late 30s, and that is called a quarter life crisis. That's not a midlife crisis. Now I can speak about the differences in these two in a separate video. If you are interested to know more about what the differences are, comment down below and I will try to put my perspective into it. But for midlife crisis specifically, because today's video is about that, it can happen to anybody who is in their late 30s to late 60s. It's not specifically tied to the age bracket of 40. Alright, so that is the first myth that I do want to bunk. Now, I know that because it happened to me in my late 30s. I've not crossed 40 yet, but it happened to me in middle of like 34, 35. So it's somewhere around that bracket that people can have, or people can have the symptoms of midlife crisis. So that's the myth number 1. So if you're sitting there and wondering, I'm not yet 40 and I don't have to worry about it, then you might be wrong. If you are experiencing some symptoms related to midlife crisis, then it could be that if you've already crossed 30. All right, so that age factor is the one myth that I want to burst. Myth number 2 related to it is that it's always something big and shiny. Like when people hear about midlife crisis, they think that it's about buying red sports car, luxurious car. Like I'm giving the analogy of a red sports car is because it's very, I'm wearing the t-shirt red, but it has no relation. The point is that people always think that when someone is in midlife crisis, it has something to do with like huge things in their life which are very, very visible to everybody, huge events happening in their life which are again very visible to everybody, and something that people feel, oh my god, my life has changed. So that is a myth. It doesn't happen like that. Midlife crisis specifically is about self-reflection. It's about you questioning your life choices, like what am I doing? It's as simple as that. It's not flashy. It's not something that an individual wants to tell anybody or something that other person automatically notices in you. It's about questioning yourself on what exactly are you doing with your life, where do you want to take your life to. The reason it happens during this age, which I have felt, which happened with me as well, is because up until 30 we are sort of taken away by the things happening in our life. Like, just think about it. You are studying, right? Up until 22 you've done your college and all of that, school, college, it's happening to you. You are doing all of that, nothing that you choose. Like, when you were 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you didn't say your parents that you want to go to school. It started, and then you are on that path and you are just doing it because you do one class. You want to make sure you are educated, you are completing your school, you are completing your college, and then you are swayed by that. Now after 22, when you finish your college, that's when you start working. That also seems like a natural shift, right? Because up until 22 years of age, you were just studying. But for what? You want at some point to become independent, because that's that age. We want to become independent and we have to earn. So now we start looking at job opportunities, and we basically start working around that age in our 20s, early 20s and late 20s. In our 20s we are all working. It even above 30 also we are all working, and we are just taken away. Now midlife crisis usually kicks in mid 30s or late 30s, because by that point of time, that's what my experience is, because by that point of time you are like, okay, I have all the things which were there in my checklist. Studies done, playing done, job done, I started earning money, I'm independent now. So all those mandatory things are off your checklist. Now you are sitting there and wondering, but is this how I want my life to be? So that questioning and that self-reflection is what actually a midlife crisis is. It's not that once you turn 35 and something major is going to happen to you, that everybody going to notice you. It's not like that. It's not a red flashy sports car. It is simple things and simple questioning that happens within you. That is what a midlife crisis is. So if you are sitting there wondering that this is such a humongous term, oh my god, I am not in crisis, I am not in midlife crisis, then it's not that flashy. It's just a reflection within you, and you curious about knowing where your life is as of now. Where do you want to take it? It's asking all those simple questions. It's those small changes which come in the way you are thinking about your life, thinking about the events in your life, thinking about the people you have in your life. So that self-reflection, questioning, all of that thought of transforming your life for better, all of those things consist of something that is happening in your midlife crisis. So it's not something flashy. So that is the myth number 2. Myth number 3 is that a lot of people actually think that midlife crisis is reserved only for men. That's not right. I have faced it. Many other women are facing it as well. Men are facing it as well. So it's not gender agnostic. Midlife crisis can happen to anybody, because everybody is having their own share of life experiences. Everybody has their own mind that they are applying. Everybody can do self-reflection. So it doesn't matter what gender you recognize yourself with, but it is something that can happen to anybody. Questioning of life choices can happen to anybody. It's not specific to men or it's not specific to women. Now, of course, that the experiences of midlife crisis could be different because of the way difference in the minds of men and women. But it could happen to anybody. What I mean by that is, women might be more emotional. Like, I'm not saying men are not emotional. As an example, women could be more emotional, and their way to tackle a certain situation could be different from how men tackles it. It doesn't mind that they are not asking questions. It doesn't mind that they are not seeking answers to all of those things happening in their life. It's just the way, maybe the type of questions that they are asking is different. Maybe the type of reflection that they're doing in their life is different. Maybe the experiences that a woman has in her life is obviously very different from experiences that a man have in their life. So their goals are different. Their future vision is different. Their present is different. There are a lot of differences, but amidst those differences, The concept of midlife crisis, of questioning yourself and finding your purpose and going inside your soul and asking all of that, like, why do you even exist, it can happen to anybody. It is not gender agnostic. So that is the myth number 3. That is very important to understand. So if you are a woman out there and thinking this can never happen to me, it's wrong. It has happened to me. It has happened to a lot of other women as well. So it's nothing to do specifically with women. If you are in this age bracket and you are questioning yourself, then it's probably that you're going through midlife crisis, and you could look at resources available out there. You could seek for help outside, but there is a way out of midlife crisis. Why can I say that? Because I got out of my midlife crisis and I can help you get out of it as well. So if you are someone sitting there feeling lonely on, okay, I know what it is, but like, is there a way out of it? Like, what do I do? Comment down below, reach out to me. I am on all social media channels. You can reach out to me and I can try to help you out. Why? Because I have helped myself out with the help of a mentor, and I could be that mentor to you as well. So don't worry if you're a man or a woman. If you're going through this, there is help available either through myself or other people out there who have overcome their midlife crisis, but it's not gender agnostic. There is a solution to it. People do get out of it as well. So that's the myth number 3. That is very important to burst as well. Now, myth number 4 revolving around midlife crisis is that it only happens, or people only question all of these things when they are unhappy. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I'm taking my own example. I'm speaking on this topic because I have experiences to share. I was not in an unhappy state when I started questioning myself. I was in a state of self-transformation and self-growth. I was in that mindset. So that myth that only if a person is unhappy they will question themselves is wrong. A person would question themselves when they are looking to grow as individuals in their life. So that period of self-growth is when they experience all the symptoms of a midlife crisis. So the myth that midlife crisis is related to being unhappy, that is not right. People are not unhappy when they are questioning themselves. People are just curious and they want to grow as an individual. They want to find their purpose in life so that they feel more content from within. So it's never, I speak a lot on this podcast about this concept. It's never a black and white situation of happy and unhappy. It's actually quite the opposite. There are millions of emotions between happy and unhappy. Some of them align more closely towards being happy, some of them align more closely towards being unhappy, and some of them are neutral. So in midlife crisis, you are nowhere near unhappy. It's actually all that emotions within happy and unhappy, wherein you're questioning yourself. That period of curiosity is there, and which is resulting in all those symptoms of seeking validation and asking all those questions. So it has nothing to do with unhappy. If you think that you are in your midlife crisis just because you're not happy with your life, that's not right. Asking questions is never wrong. Remember when we were in our schools and colleges and we used to hear teachers say, like, whatever question you have, just ask. You don't need to worry about how people will judge. Same thing applies here as well. That if you are, like, your mind is asking those questions naturally, let it ask the questions and help your mind to find answers to all those questions. It has nothing to do with you being in a happy state and an unhappy state. So I do want to definitely burst this myth. So if you are in this situation, don't worry. It's not because you're unhappy, it's just because you're curious. Now, obviously, with these questions arising in our mind, it could be a challenging time for some people, depending on the intensity of those questions, depending on the way your life is going at this point. But asking questions is literally the first step. Like, knowing yourself is literally the first step. That challenging time is actually an opportunity for you to grow, rediscover your passion, set new goals, and basically transform your life altogether. So the birth of this podcast, the Beyond the Peel and Journey to Self-Transformation, it actually erupted from me being in my midlife crisis. Like, I wanted to do something to change the way my life was going and change the way I as an individual had become because of how I was conditioned from childhood. I knew that something had to change. It was not that I was not happy. It was just that I am made for better things. I can live the life way I want to. I don't want to adjust because I have adjusted for the first 35 years of my life. I wanted to be the driver of my life and steer it in the way where I wanted. Because a lot of times, as I was giving that analogy of school and college and work and all of that, when we reach the age of 35, in our mid 30s, we have lived the life just because we are supposed to check things off the checklist and everybody is doing it. And I'm not saying they were not important. I'm not saying education was not important or you getting in a job was not important. It was good. That's the life that you've led, and that's something that you had to do to gain those experiences. But now at this point, you are just stopping there and thinking, okay, what's really happening? Is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life as well? Is this how I want to die as well? Do I feel content? Does my soul feel nourished? And all of those questions. So that's when you are basically questioning yourself. So it's not because you're unhappy, as I'm saying it a million times already in this point, but it's just because you are curious and you want to drive the steering of your life, and there is nothing wrong with that. Okay, so that is the myth number 4 that I definitely wanted to burst. Now myth number 5, last myth around midlife crisis, is that it's negative. When people hear the term crisis, they think it's negative. Crisis is always not negative. It actually can, I'm going to repeat that, it actually will lead to positive outcomes. A person who has identified that there's something needs changing, a person who's identified that they are facing some sort of crisis, will get positive outcomes, because people who will not question themselves at all, they will not know what needs changing and they will keep cribbing all their life. But people who are questioning that why is it happening, will let me just give my life a pause and think like what is really happening, and do I want my life to be like this always in future? Those are the people who will get positive outcomes, as opposed to people who are just sitting there. They have adjusted the way life is happening to them and they are like, okay, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to keep sitting there. And when negative events happen in their life, they will basically crib about it, complain about it, rather than doing something about it. Make sure you are in the first category of people who are questioning why things are happening the way they are happening, and I'm going to find a solution. I work in a corporate and I have around 14 years of experience now when I'm recording this video. There are 2 types of people in corporate. One are people who always have problems, 2 solutions as well. And there are 1 type of people who always have solution to something that is not even a problem. So I hope that makes sense, and that actually holds true for your life as well, because you want to be someone who, even if it is not a problem, it could become a problem in future. Maybe because, as an example, suppose your nature is XYZ, like you behave in a certain way when something triggers you get really angry and your energy changes, you are messed up for a couple of days, and that is obviously a problem in someone's life. Now one person could approach it in a way like, let me try to understand, why am I getting triggered by something, why am I reacting the way I am reacting, and then try to find a solution. So you see, trying to find a solution is even a secondary thing. First thing is asking questions. Why is it really happening? So be that type of person, as opposed to someone on the other side who is, they will let 3-4 days pass in that anger, destroying their own mood, everybody else's mood around them, and then they will forget about it, and this will keep happening again and again and again, because they don't want to find a solution to it. They're not bothered. They're like, okay, I am just like that. I have adjusted how I am. This is what my personality is. So in these 2 type of people, one who are solution seekers to something that is a problem or something that could become a problem in future, be someone like that. So someone who's in a midlife crisis is actually a good thing. It's good thing that you've identified that this is a crisis. It's not a negative thing. Only if you have identified something, you will get a positive outcome to it. So it's like a wake-up call that inspires you to change things which you're not liking at the moment. So you are your own alarm clock. You are waking yourself up. So this alarm clock is ringing in the middle of your life. Hello, what are you doing? So it's like that. So you need to make sure you're listening to that alarm clock and you are waking up and you are ready to put in the effort to make those changes in your life, because it's your life and you want to lead it to in the best way possible, right? So whenever you hear the term crisis in this scenario, it's not negative. It is actually quite the opposite. It could be negative at first because you're feeling all those things and you're questioning, but there is something beautiful that comes out of it, of course, if you have that mindset, right? So these are the most common myths that I have seen people have in their mind when they think about midlife crisis. Now let me know via comments if you can relate to any of this, or if there's anything else that you think about when you are listening to the term midlife crisis. Let me know via comments below. But all in all, to summarize this and to wrap up the video, this is just one phase of your life. You're just undergoing this, like you've completed X amount of years for your education, like you've completed X amount of years for your job and earning money. This is a phase, and good thing is this will pass. If you're questioning yourself, if you've identified that you are undergoing something and you're not sure what that is, I think it's a really good thing. It's a very, very positive sign. Now, if you keep up with that mindset of trying to question every damn thing happening in your life, you will get to the other end. If you don't even question, you're not even on this path of self-improvement and this self-transformation. So I hope that makes sense. I hope my midlife crisis journey has been of value to you all out there. As I said earlier, like this entire podcast, Beyond the Peel, Your Journey to Self-Transformation, it was an outcome of me being in my midlife crisis. When I started asking all these questions, I found a mentor. I basically understood what I wanted from life. I understood myself on why I was behaving certain way. I understood why things were not going the way they were going. And when I identified that, I recognized I want to speak it out. And that's when this podcast actually started. If you go to literally the first video of this podcast, I think not first, first few videos, maybe 4 or 5, they are literally about self-reflection. So it's really great if you've found me through this podcast. You can browse through the entire podcast. In the beginning, you will see, because I see that like it's been a journey for me as well. I am going to complete almost 50 videos in this podcast, and which means 50 weeks of me recording videos and posting videos, because I post every week. So I see that change in me from when I started to where I am now. The reason I'm able to do that is because I asked questions, I found solution to those questions, and I feel happy sharing that with you all via this podcast and via this channel. So if you all can relate to whatever I say either in this video or in general, do not forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not already done so, and notification icon definitely helps, because as I said, I do post videos every week. So you want to make sure you get the full information from me related to self-transformation. So hit that bell icon if you've not already done so. So I hope your journey on this podcast has been wonderful, like my own life journey is wonderful now. So do let me know via comments on what your experiences have been. I will see you all another week with another interesting topic. Bye-bye.